The couple was told they'd never have children after 8 years of trying. What Steve Harvey revealed on live TV made them collapse in tears and proved that miracles happen when you least expect them but need them most. It was April 2023, and 32-year-old Jessica Martinez sat in her Houston apartment, staring at another negative pregnancy test. Beside her, her husband Carlos, also 32, put his arm around her shoulders as she broke down in tears for what felt like the 1,000th time in 8 years. "I can't do this anymore," Jessica whispered through her sobs. "I can't keep putting myself through this emotional torture every month. Jess, maybe it's time we seriously consider other options," Carlos said gently. "Adoption, surrogacy, or maybe we accept that it's just going to be the two of us." Jessica looked at him with eyes red from crying. "But I want to carry your baby, Carlos. I want to feel our child growing inside me. I want to give birth to a little person who's half you and half me. I know, mi amor. I want that too. But watching you break your heart every month is killing me." Jessica and Carlos had been trying to have a baby since they got married in 2015. What they thought would happen naturally and quickly had turned into an 8-year nightmare of disappointment, medical procedures, and crushing heartbreak. Their fertility journey had begun optimistically. Both were young, healthy, and had no family history of fertility issues. When Jessica didn't get pregnant after 6 months of trying, they weren't worried. "It takes time," their friends assured them. "Relax and it will happen." But after a year with no success, Jessica and Carlos decided to see a fertility specialist. The initial tests showed that both of them were perfectly healthy. Jessica's hormones were normal, her cycles were regular, and Carlos's sperm count was excellent. The doctor was optimistic. "There's no medical reason you shouldn't be able to conceive naturally," Dr. Sarah Chen had told them. "Sometimes it just takes longer for some couples. Keep trying, reduce stress, and I'm confident it will happen." But it didn't happen. Month after month, year after year, the pregnancy tests came back negative. Jessica began tracking everything obsessively. You see her temperature, her ovulation, her diet, her stress levels. She tried acupuncture, changed her diet, took fertility supplements, and even consulted a fertility psychic her desperate sister had recommended. After 3 years of trying, they moved to more aggressive treatments. Jessica underwent intrauterine insemination, IUI, 6 times. Each procedure raised their hopes, and each failure devastated them further. "Maybe we should try IVF," Dr. Chen suggested. After the 6th failed IUI, in vitro fertilization became Jessica and Carlos's last hope, but it also became their financial and emotional breaking point. They took out loans, sold Carlos's truck, and borrowed money from family to pay for the treatments. The first IVF cycle ended in a chemical pregnancy. Jessica was technically pregnant for a few days before losing the embryo. The second cycle failed completely. The third cycle resulted in a pregnancy that lasted 6 weeks before ending in miscarriage. "This is our last try," Jessica had told Carlos before their 4th IVF attempt. "If this doesn't work, I don't think I can handle any more." The 4th cycle seemed perfect. Jessica's hormone levels were excellent, the embryo implanted successfully, and for 12 beautiful weeks, they were pregnant. They told their families, started planning the nursery, and allowed themselves to believe their dream was finally coming true. Then, at their 12-week appointment, there was no heartbeat. "I'm so sorry," Dr. Chen said during the ultrasound, that would haunt Jessica's dreams. "Sometimes these things just happen, and there's no medical explanation." That miscarriage, their 4th in 8 years, broke something fundamental in Jessica's spirit. "I'm done," she had told Carlos through tears after the procedure. "I can't lose another baby. I can't keep hoping and having my heart ripped out. Jessica, maybe we should take a break from treatments, but that doesn't mean we give up entirely. Carlos, we've spent $85,000 on fertility treatments. We've put our lives on hold for 8 years. I've had 4 miscarriages and more negative pregnancy tests than I can count. At some point, we have to accept that this isn't going to happen for us." For 6 months after their final miscarriage, Jessica and Carlos tried to rebuild their marriage and their lives without the constant focus on pregnancy. Jessica threw herself into her work as a pediatric nurse, finding purpose in caring for other people's children. Carlos focused on his construction business, and tried to support his wife through the grief that seemed to consume her. But the pain of their infertility affected every aspect of their lives. Baby showers became torture. Family gatherings were painful when relatives asked about their plans for children. Even grocery shopping was difficult when Jessica had to walk past the baby food aisle. "I feel broken," Jessica confided to her sister Maria one evening. "Like I'm not a real woman because I can't do the most basic thing women are supposed to be able to do." "Jess, you are not broken. You're one of the strongest people I know. Strong people don't fall apart every time they see a pregnant woman at the store. Strong people survive 8 years of trying to have a baby and still get up every morning to take care of sick children at the hospital." It was Maria who suggested that Jessica and Carlos write to the Steve Harvey Show. "They help couples all the time," Maria said. "Maybe Steve can give you some perspective on how to move forward, whether that's continuing to try or finding peace with being childless." Jessica was reluctant. "Maria, I don't want to go on TV to talk about our private struggles. But maybe talking to someone outside the situation could help. And maybe hearing your story could help other couples going through the same thing." Against her better judgment, Jessica wrote a letter to Steve Harvey. "Dear Mr. Harvey," she began, "my husband and I have been trying to have a baby for 8 years. We've been through every fertility treatment available, spent our life savings, and lost 4 pregnancies. I'm writing to you because I don't know how to accept that we may never be parents. How do you grieve a dream that never became reality? How do you move forward when the thing you want most in the world seems impossible?" Jessica included their medical history, photos from their wedding, and copies of sympathy cards they had received after their miscarriages. 8 weeks later, Jessica received a phone call that would change everything. "Jessica, this is Janet Miller from the Steve Harvey Show. We received your letter about your fertility journey, and Mr. Harvey wants to meet with you and Carlos. What kind of advice could he give us that we haven't already heard from doctors and therapists?" Jessica asked. "Jessica, just trust me on this. Can you and Carlos come to Chicago next week?" 3 days later, Jessica and Carlos sat in the green room of the Steve Harvey Show, both nervous about sharing their story on national television. "We've never talked publicly about this," Jessica told the producer. "I'm not sure I can get through it without breaking down." "Jessica, that's exactly why Steve wants to talk to you. Your pain is real, and other couples need to hear that they're not alone in this struggle." When Steve met with Jessica and Carlos before the show, he was deeply moved by their story. "Jessica, Carlos, I want you to know that what you've been through takes incredible strength. 8 years of hoping and disappointment, that's not something weak people survive." "Mr. Harvey, we don't feel strong," Carlos said. "We feel defeated. That's exactly why you're here. Sometimes we need an outside perspective to help us see our own strength." During the first part of the show, Jessica and Carlos shared their story with the audience. Jessica talked about the monthly disappointment, the medical procedures, and the financial stress. Carlos discussed watching his wife suffer and feeling helpless to fix the situation. "Jessica, what's been the hardest part of this journey?" Steve asked. "The hardest part has been feeling like my body is betraying me," Jessica said through tears. "I work with babies every day at the hospital. I see teen moms, drug-addicted mothers, women who don't want their babies, and I can't understand why they can get pregnant easily when Carlos and I, who want a baby more than anything, can't make it happen." "Carlos, how has this affected your marriage?" "It's put a strain on us that I never expected. Every month our whole lives revolve around Jessica's cycle. Every family gathering becomes painful when people ask about kids. We've lost friends because we can't handle being around their children." Steve nodded with understanding. "Have you considered that maybe you're meant to be parents in a different way? Adoption, fostering?" "We've talked about it," Jessica said. "But I've always dreamed of carrying Carlos's baby, of experiencing pregnancy and birth. It's hard to let go of that dream." "Sometimes," Steve said carefully, "we have to let go of one dream to make room for another dream to come true." Steve paused and looked at Jessica and Carlos with an expression they couldn't quite read. "Jessica, Carlos, I want to ask you something. When was your last doctor's appointment?" "About 2 months ago," Jessica replied, confused by the question. "And you haven't been back since then?" "No, we decided we were done with treatments." Steve smiled mysteriously. "Jessica, when did you last take a pregnancy test?" Jessica looked puzzled. About 3 weeks ago. Why? And it was negative? Yes, of course, they're always negative. Steve stood up and walked over to Jessica and Carlos. Jessica, I want you to meet someone. This is Dr. Rebecca Martinez from Houston Methodist Hospital. She's been working with our show, and she has something very important to tell you. Dr. Martinez came onto the stage, carrying a manila envelope. Jessica, Carlos, Dr. Martinez said, 3 weeks ago, you had blood work done as part of your annual physical, correct? Yes, Jessica said, still confused. Jessica, I need to tell you something that's going to change your life. Dr. Martinez opened the envelope and pulled out lab results. Jessica, according to your blood work from 3 weeks ago, you are pregnant. The studio went completely silent. Jessica stared at Dr. Martinez as if she hadn't understood the words. What? Jessica whispered. You're pregnant, Jessica. The blood test shows elevated HCG levels consistent with a pregnancy of approximately 8-9 weeks. Jessica's legs gave out, and Carlos caught her as she started to collapse. That's impossible, Jessica said, hyperventilating. I took a pregnancy test 3 weeks ago. It was negative. Home pregnancy tests aren't always accurate in very early pregnancy, especially for women who have been through fertility treatments. Your hormone levels may not have been high enough to register on a home test. Jessica was crying so hard she couldn't speak. Carlos was holding her, both of them shaking with shock and disbelief. Jessica, Steve said gently, Dr. Martinez brought something else for you. Dr. Martinez wheeled out a portable ultrasound machine. Jessica, would you like to see your baby? The audience was crying as Jessica, still in shock, allowed Dr. Martinez to perform an ultrasound right there on the stage. When the image appeared on the screen showing a tiny but healthy baby, Jessica let out a scream of joy that could be heard throughout the studio. That's our baby? Carlos said, staring at the screen in amazement. That's your healthy, strong baby, Dr. Martinez confirmed. About 9 weeks along with a strong heartbeat. Jessica was sobbing so hard she couldn't catch her breath. After 8 years, after everything we've been through, this is really happening. This is really happening, Steve said, wiping tears from his own eyes. You're going to be parents. The most beautiful moment came when Steve asked Jessica what she wanted to say to women who were still struggling with infertility. I want them to know that I understand their pain, Jessica said, still crying happy tears while looking at the ultrasound image. I want them to know that hope is the hardest thing to hold on to, but sometimes miracles happen when you least expect them. What would you tell your past self from 8 years ago? I would tell her that every disappointment, every loss, every moment of despair was leading to this moment. I would tell her that sometimes God's timing is different from our timing, but it's perfect timing. 6 months later, Jessica and Carlos returned to the Steve Harvey Show with their healthy baby daughter, Isabella Rose Martinez. How does it feel to be holding the baby you waited 8 years for? Steve asked. It feels like every tear, every disappointment, every moment of heartbreak was worth it, Jessica said, holding Isabella close. She's not just our baby, she's our miracle. Carlos, what would you tell other men whose wives are struggling with infertility? I would tell them to be patient, to hold on to hope even when your wife can't, and to remember that your job is to support her through the darkest moments, Carlos replied. And I would tell them that miracles really do happen. The most touching part of the follow-up was when Jessica revealed that she had started a support group for women struggling with infertility. Isabella's story has given hope to so many women, Jessica said. We get letters from couples all over the world who saw our story and didn't give up. 3 couples in our support group have gotten pregnant since seeing our episode. What's the message you want people to take from your story? That miracles happen, but they happen in God's timing, not ours. That sometimes the longest journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations, and that hope is always worth holding on to, even when it seems impossible. Today, Jessica and Carlos Martinez are the proud parents of Isabella, now 8 months old, and are expecting their second child, another miracle pregnancy that happened naturally. They continue to run their infertility support group and have helped dozens of couples navigate their own fertility journeys. Steve keeps a photo from the day Jessica and Carlos learned they were pregnant on his desk. The moment when 8 years of heartbreak turned into pure joy, It reminds him daily that miracles happen when we least expect them but need them most. Jessica and Carlos taught me that sometimes the longest wait makes the blessing even sweeter, Steve often says. Their story proves that God's timing is perfect, even when we can't understand it. If this incredible miracle pregnancy story moved you, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who's struggling with infertility and needs to know that miracles are possible. Have you ever experienced a miracle when you had given up hope? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about hope, faith, and the miracles that happen when we need them most.